This is Michael with AI Made Simple. This video is about how to effectively talk to chatbots to get them to do whatever you need them to do. Um, we're going to start by talking about just how to chat with chatbots, sorry, with AI, like generative AI. And then after that, maybe the second half of the video is going to be about the basics of prompt engineering and how to get started with that. Now, I'm aware that there's already a lot of resources online about this exact topic, but I still feel there's value to do it because I'm coming at it from the perspective of, as the channel says, AI made simple. I'm aiming for an audience that maybe fell behind with AI hype and feels like it's very difficult to catch up. I want to be a resource that helps people to understand this technology in a simple way. Like I'm a non-technical person and I feel like I can effectively talk to non-technical people about this technology. So um, we're going to hear words often like, I'm sure you're hearing these words all the time, like prompt engineering, all that stuff. What is a prompt? On the screen, you see this chatbot that I made a long time ago that explains prompt engineering in different levels of complexity. Right now, it's explaining it to a child, which honestly is the best way to do it sometimes. So here it's saying that a prompt is effectively little instructions. And this right at the start is really the core of everything we're going to talk about in this video and the core of how to talk to AI. It's very tempting. There's really two main mistakes that I see when people are learning how to talk to AI. One is being too simple. People talk to it like it's a search engine, like they're talking to Google or something. They'll just type in like, apple pie instead of how do I make an apple pie. Um, and two is kind of going the opposite direction of talking to it like it's a friend or a person or something. Um, and that also doesn't work sometimes because it really does need instructions. You have to be detailed about it and in a way that you might not want to be with a person because it might feel patronizing, but AI is not going to feel patronized. You want to be as specific and detailed as possible with the instructions. So I'm going to say the word prompt a lot. Just think of it in this context almost interchangeably with instruction. Okay? Okay. So this video will have two chapters. Chapter 1, how to talk to AI. Chapter 2, prompt engineering 101. I guess we can call it that. Okay? So let's look at an example. Here I have two instances of ChatGPT set up. Both of them want the same thing, but they're asking in very different ways. This one just says, plan a trip to Japan, while this one is far more specific. This one is treating it like instructions. So it's telling it how long the trip is going to be, where it's going to be, who I'm going with, what kind of things we like, what area we'll be in, even some context about how we've been there before, and also what we expect the output to be. And you can see that with better instructions, you get better results. Oh, save my memory. So they're both kind of following the same format, but obviously this one's not going to work for me because this one's like a 2-week trip. It's going to areas I'm not going to be in, all that stuff. What kind of stuff is it talking about? Oh yeah, and this one also I told her that we've been there before. Anyhow, you get the idea. You get the idea, right? Better instructions, better output. Now, a few things to keep in mind. One, probably the most important, this thing can be wrong. It can be wrong often, and when it is wrong, it sounds extremely convincing that it's right. So I encourage everyone to take everything it says as a suggestion, but not as the truth. Remember that although it's speaking to you, it's not a person. It's really not even intelligent. Some people argue that these things should not be called AI. It's a very complex algorithm that has studied a lot of text, and it's effectively guessing based on what you said, what should be the next letter, what should be the next word, on a probability scale. At least that's my understanding. So it could definitely be wrong. and you need to, depending on how important the information is, you need to double check it. Secondly, another important thing is that you often need to iterate. Let's say that I said this and I realized, oh, you're doing like a 2-week trip, 14 days. Well, that doesn't work. So now I need to update my instructions. If your output is incorrect, don't just throw away the tool. Realize that your instructions can be better, and with better instructions, you might get the output that you want. And finally, if all else fails, hey, just go to AI and ask AI how to talk to AI. it can explain that very well, actually. So I encourage you to you know, do this if you ever want to learn more. Okay, all this talk about instructions is actually a great segue to the second chapter of this video, which is Prompt Engineering 101. I think, let me get this set up. Hold up. Okay, I'm back. We're going to do the same thing, the split screen thing. So instructions. Well, let's see. When I talk about instructions, this gets really confusing. Sorry if I stumble in my words. I'll explain why this is confusing in just a minute. I feel like it's a new technology and the language hasn't quite adapted to talk about it properly. There's multiple different ways to use the word prompt, and I'm going to show you that right now. So if I just come here on the left, this is standard ChatGPT. On the right is a custom GPT that uses my own custom instructions, okay? So we're going to ask it a question, how do I shoot a fireball in Mario 3? And then over here, I'm going to ask the exact same thing to my custom GPT. All right, the response is very different. Why is that? Well, again, it's because this one on the right is my custom GPT with my custom instructions. Cool. So what do we mean by custom instructions? Well, let's open this one up. Let's just bring it back over here. Behind the scenes in my custom GPT are these instructions. Long instructions explaining its role, its objective, its voice, its tone, showing it examples, setting up rules, all that stuff. So when I talk to it and I say, how do I shoot a fireball? Mario 3. Here's where the language gets confusing, okay? This, when people are talking about AI, people refer to this as a prompt. However, people also refer to this as a prompt. So what's happening here is I'm sending this prompt to the custom GPT. It is, at the same time, it is reading my message and it's reading all of these instructions. It's reading both of those and then outputting this to follow these instructions and answer this. So we need to kind of split up the way we're talking about this stuff. This can be a prompt, but this stuff is often called like a system prompt or system instructions. So here's a prompt. Here's a system prompt. If we go into some code, here is also a system prompt. That's how I'm able to make these chatbots that have their own job, I guess, because they have these system prompts sitting behind the scenes, instructing on how to operate. So when people talk about prompt engineering, sometimes they are talking about the stuff you can write here. Oh, goodness. Sometimes they are talking about this. But usually people are talking about these system prompts that sit behind the chatbot and instruct its role with every single message. So we've talked about in previous videos building your own chatbot, custom GPTs. Let's really get into it with prompt engineering and how to write a really great system prompt. Okay, let's open this guy up. Oh, by the way, I moved my mic a little bit further away from my mouth. I realized I was kind of blowing out my mic a little bit. Hopefully it's not too quiet now. I got to get a better mic. I know that. Anyhow, so this is a system prompt that I have iterated on over a very long time. I use it often. And so I think it demonstrates a lot of what the prompting techniques that work well for me. Um, and again, I think I said before, this is more of an art than a science. So I'm going to show you what works for me, and a lot of it is stuff that I've studied from OpenAI and other prompting resources, things I learned from my time at Microsoft, and also just techniques I've developed on my own. Um, but that's all to say, there is not an exact science for how to write a good prompt. I think people are still learning it and developing techniques. So I'm going to show you what works for me. I encourage you to start with this, but then also explore other techniques and things that might work better for you for your use cases. Okay, so a good prompt. Watching people talk about prompting right now has been kind of funny for me coming from a writing background because a lot of what people are discovering is not some magic with prompting. It's just writing well. It's just doing good writing. So a lot of the techniques that are good for writing are also going to be good for prompt engineering. That's like being clear and concise in your writing, being organized, um, being specific. Okay, all those good writing techniques are also good prompt writing techniques. So let's go through this kind of piece by piece. But first, an overview. If I just scroll through it, you can already pick up that it's organized. What I'm not doing is just throwing paragraphs in here without organization. So I'm splitting it up so it knows here I'm talking about your role. Here I'm talking about some basics, some objectives, some flow, style guide. Here's examples, okay? I'm splitting up sections so that it is completely clear. This section is about this. This section is about this. You want to treat these things in a very, very literal way. They're going to follow your instructions very literally, okay? So you want things to be organized so that it perfectly understands where one set of instructions begins and ends and the other one begins. I said that kind of awkwardly, didn't I? Or where one set of instructions ends and the next one begins, okay? So let's look at the different sections. I almost always start off with role. This is going to define so much about how the chatbot behaves. A lot, especially its personality, I guess, the tone of its responses, but also just how it thinks of itself. A lot of people will tell it to start off as an expert. Okay, like if we're going back to that Japan trip one, you could tell it, hey, your role, you are, I don't know if this is this, like an expert travel planner or whatever. I don't know if that's a thing, but you get the idea. Um, Basics is not something I always include. This one misbehaved a lot, so I included basics. Usually I'll jump to objective as the next thing. And objective is telling it what is its goal, right? What does success for you mean? What does failure for you mean? What do I want you to do? So we have role. Basics is more specific to this chatbot. Include it if you want. I usually don't include it, but it worked well for this one. Next, I have conversation flow outline, or really just conversation flow. Usually I would not have two sections on this, but this one I'm just being very detailed. But conversation flow. Here I'm trying to get it to understand what sort of flow I want the conversation to have. I guess it's pretty straightforward. But if you know what sort of steps are going to occur often in your conversation, you can include that also. So these things I see as kind of the stricter parts of this, the more technical parts of its role, its objectives, the conversation flow. And then we get sort of into the softer skills, style guide. So now I'm instructing its tone, its voice, what to include, what not to include. Generally, I guess I'm not following this too much on my own. I could probably improve this, but generally you want to focus on telling it positive instructions, not negative instructions. So tell it what to do instead of what not to do. Now, if you tell it what not to do, it can follow that sometimes. But in my experience, it's going to be more reliable if you tell it what to do, what positively to do, instead of what not to do. Of course, negative instructions are critical sometimes, but generally focus on what it should do. So a style guide. Um, and then finally, this is extremely helpful. Provide examples if you can. So also note that in the examples, I'm also being organized inside the example. So I have this as like a heading with these things. By the way, there's nothing magic about these. I'm just using it as some sort of a symbol that shows it like, hey, the next section is starting. Okay? So if you want to use, oh shoot. If you want to follow me and use these, that's great. If you want to do this, that's great. If you want to do this, that's great. Honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. Whatever you use, just be consistent. That's what's important. Be consistent. Because the system is trying to understand your instructions. It's trying to understand what you want and how you're using language. So the best way to do it is just be consistent. Okay. So down here, I'm explaining it. Here are some good examples within explanations. And now I'm sectioning off the example. I'm telling it where the example begins and ends. If you don't do this, it might be confusing. It might think that this is part of the instructions instead of part of the example. So I'm telling it the beginning and the ending of the example. I'm being extremely literal with it, right? And then also here's some secret sauce. This has proved extremely valuable. You'll see a lot of other guides that say to add examples. This is not new. I don't see a lot of guides that do this. Here I'm explaining the example so that it knows what is good or bad about this example and why I included it. This is so helpful doing something like this. So let's review. 1. Be organized. Create some sort of heading or section splitter to split up the parts of your instructions. 2. Tell it its role. What sort of personality do you want it to have? Its objective. What does success mean? What do you want out of it? The conversation flow. If you know, maybe you don't, that's fine. But if you know the expected conversation flow, let it know what you expect. Like, what should it do first, second, third? Style guide. Do you want it to write long messages? Do you want it to be concise? And examples are extremely, I think examples are critical, actually. I don't think you should ever have a prompt that doesn't have examples. At least for the way AI is right now. Maybe it'll change in the future, but I think this is so critical. And even for the examples, be organized. And if you want, explain the examples. Okay. So this is how I write a prompt. And also, by the way, being organized like this, it makes it easier for the AI to understand what you want. It also makes it easier for you to come back and update it. And updating is a critical part of my prompt engineering. Very rarely are you going to write some instructions and it just works immediately. What you usually need to do is write instructions that you think are going to work, use it for a while, think about what it's doing well, what it's not doing well, come back, tweak the instructions, go back, try it again. And so if your instructions are organized, it makes it so much easier to come back and like pinpoint, okay, it's following its role well, it's following the style guide well, but it's messing up on the instruction, the objective. It doesn't seem to understand what its success indicators are. Or if there's one specific area where it's struggling, you can make an example to target that specific area. Is that about it? I think that might be about it. So there you have it. That's how you talk to AI, and that's Prompt Engineering 101. As always, I will have a custom GPT made for this video that you can talk to and ask any questions. And I'm also going to have a blog post. Check the video description for both of those. Again, I do feel kind of silly making this. There's so many other resources talking about the same stuff. Ultimately, I encourage you to just go try it. That's the only way you're going to get better at this. It really is a skill, and the only way to improve at a skill is by using the skill. Um, so, yep, go try it. Let me know what you build, and I think in the future we might go deeper into prompt engineering. Maybe learn some technical things like line chain and whatnot, but learn it from the perspective of a non-technical person. I think that'd be really cool. Let me know what you want to learn about. Take care. Be good out there.